we saw back in the first presentation we had of the day, Darragh was talking about Nike's campaign on greatness, or was it Stephen on Nike's campaign on greatness, and the raising of the ordinary hero. That's something that you're really tapping into here. Is that where the future of sport is going? That it's us as opposed to the big superstars?
That would be obviously my belief. Certainly, I think people they constantly want to have stories. Like I think everybody's mentioned it today in terms of content and stories, and especially stuff they can personalise. I mean, the game of GAA is just so unique in Ireland. Is it on? Yeah. It's so unique in Ireland. It's an unbelievable thing, and I think everybody just dreams. Certainly, in the case of the championship, the club championship, they can dream that they can win a junior final or a senior final, and that they can play with the big stars. So for me, it is about the sport. Obviously, it's an incredible competition, but it is the chance to actually win something themselves. We've players this last weekend, a player who was 50, and he was playing in one of the semi-finals. And you sort of go, that's amazing. There's nothing more emotive than a story like that. But I think also it is just about those really interesting stories that are out there and being able to share them.
Mm. And do you think, I mean, your involvement in this, you're a big brand, you're a very commercial organisation. Is this going to make people open up an AIB account or stay with AIB? How do you measure the real return on your investment in this?
Well, it's a great question. I get that asked that a lot. I think historically, brands like AIB and probably Bank of Ireland and other banks in Ireland would have been big investors in CSR and big programs and big sponsorships. Certainly with AIB, we pulled back from all other sponsorships for the right reasons, absolutely right reasons, and we maintained this because the link to the community. For us, we believe it shows we are still part of the community. As I say, we have 200 branches out there. The vast majority of people who work for AIB work out in the branches, in the network, and they are involved with clubs. Their kids play GAA, etc. So it's very, very important to us. Interestingly enough, we were doing some stuff with students recently, and the last thing students want to talk about are banks. They've no interest. They have no idea how it works. They don't want to know how it works. So you ask a standard 15-year-old how it works, and they get confused because they think their €20 goes in a bank, and they think it's the same €20 they get out of the ATM, and that really confuses them. How does their note get back in the ATM? So they don't want to talk about banks. But actually, what they are talking to us about is the thing they know about AIB and makes us different is actually the club championships, because they talk about all the fantastic matches, the great content. They talk about sharing stuff with their friends. So I do think it has a very, very positive long-term effect for AIB. That would be my expectation.
And in terms of, you've mentioned there about the staff and the majority of the staff working out there in the branches, is that an important element of this, the fact that allows somebody to walk 2 inches taller going to work in an AIB branch as opposed to another branch out there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we have over 220 GAA champions within our business. So they're guys who volunteered to go to all matches, weekend matches, club matches, etc. And whether it's just to go along and meet the teams or, do a man of the match. And, this is 10 months of the year, and it's on their own time because there is that passion. It's a unique sport for that. We have, so we have so many people within our business constantly come to us going, my daughter is playing. Actually, I was speaking to Joan earlier, and she was telling me she met a colleague of mine, and his daughter was playing in a junior final last weekend, and he was straight up to us last weekend going, can I do a man of the match presentation? So, I think it is great for the staff. I think, as everybody knows, banks have been the bad boys for quite a period of time, and there's loads of good reasons for that. But actually the staff in our branches have always had a great place in the community. Actually, when you talk to people, really who they don't like is the bankers, and they don't like the head offices, etc. But when you talk to them about the people on the front line, they still have very good relationships because they're in the community. So I think it works both ways.
That's great. Yeah, I was out coaching my 9-year-old last night, and I looked across, and there was a vice president of HSBC and the director of wealth asset management at Ulster Bank both over there trying to teach a 9-year-old just how to lift a sliotar onto the hurl in the right way. So it does. It kind of makes everything more human and more natural. Are there any questions from the floor out there that anybody would like to ask of Brian about maybe the mechanics behind the campaign or anything else that it achieved? Yeah.
So we call it a gang, right? So we have a gang, and it's very different, I suppose. And it's really interesting that we're kind of learning, I would say, to some extent, from the team in AIB. We're learning from our experience on GAA, because we work in a kind of gang situation. So we have people who work on mortgages, for their day job, or they might work on personal credit or whatever, but they're really passionate about GAA and they know a lot about it. And also they're very, very savvy when it comes to social media, digital, etc., which is really important, because we don't actually have a team that work on this full time. We have one person. We also have a community manager who engages with all our with all the people in the community all the time. So we have a gang, and it was Rothco, our advertising agency. So we have a couple of very passionate guys around that. So, for example, on the toughest challenge with the chair out in Jones's Road, they came to us a couple of days beforehand and said, "Listen, we have this great idea. We'll see if somebody will rip it up, the ticket up." We said, "Yeah, go for it. This is brilliant." So the two guys who came up with the idea went out. They did it with a GoPro. That was the Sunday of the match, obviously. They came back, and overnight they edited it, and it was online on the Monday morning because they love it. So they're great. We work with WHPR. WH have done an amazing job in terms of really, really, mining those great stories for us. And we work obviously with Starcom as well, who are our media buyers. So there are no boundaries between them when it comes to our GAA team. And then our team, Ben, one of the team members here today, we have about 3 people who are really passionate about GAA in my team and work on it constantly when they can.
It was a constant throughout. As you say, the sponsorship has been there for 23 years. For 7 of those 23 years, AIB and banks in general were persona non grata throughout Ireland. Was there ever a chance that you were going to come under pressure to actually withdraw that, to just sort of come into your horns? I won't ask whether you ever closed the boxes in various stadia around the country, because I don't need to ask that question, maybe not of you, but certainly of other banks. But there was a period when you just didn't want to be out there. Was this ever under threat or in danger at that time?
If I'm honest, I can't answer that question. I don't know. I'm in the bank 16 months, so I actually don't know. I was lucky enough to come in probably after a lot of the trauma for people working in the bank, if I'm honest, and then we started with a fresh piece of paper, which was great when you're coming in to do something like this. But I would say that I would severely doubt they ever thought about moving away from the club championships, because, as I say, 23 years of history, very ingrained in the business. And in fact, one of the biggest challenges for me was the TV ad that ran previously, the campaign that would have run previously, which was the boy running through the village, which ran for a long, long time. And there were so many people who absolutely loved it. And, you felt like you were the guy who was going to shoot the puppy, because, hey, that's gone. I'm sorry, we're not doing the club at the championship thing. We're going to do the toughest. So it's deeply ingrained. And as I say, the 220 AIB champions we have within the organisation, I think, shows it actually is part of the DNA of the organisation. So that's the one that survived out of all the things we did.
It's just as well the lady who makes the hang sandwiches wasn't on Twitter, or she would have been giving out yards to you at the time. Okay, yeah, no, it is. It's great to always be moving on. Anybody else in the room like to ask a question of us while we're up here, while you have the man at your disposal? Not quite yet. Let you gather your thoughts on it. In terms of, we've heard, GoPro has probably been the sort of the phrase of the day, and the amount of sort of really fast content that you can turn around on it. How does that sit within a conservative structure like a bank, where there are the various levels of approval that need to go up? I mean, it'll be heartening to hear that it was 2 days beforehand that Aertv that idea sort of came to life. So anything is possible. Like, we could have, from within the room here, we could have a great campaign out of the weekend which goes viral just because of something that we heard about today. But how much of a challenge is that for you as a marketer to get your board within the bank and everybody else to trust you?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a brilliant thing in terms of when you start from scratch, reputationally, to be honest. So we have a lot of latitude when it comes to, especially the GAA, when we come to working with the club championships. We the stuff a lot of the time, and we've had, when Garth Brooks, and it was all over the place, and people were going, oh, Jesus, don't get into the middle of that. I was in Sardinia, and I was having people ring me going, really? A tweet about Garth Brooks and Croke Park and stuff like that. So occasionally you get stuff, but 9 times out of 10, absolute freedom to do what we have to do because it's been so positive. I mean, as I say, we're learning as we go along, and I think the stuff we're doing now, we're pushing it a little bit further each time, because, in reality, the negative stuff is quite low. The community will come back and defend you. So, for example, I got asked a question recently about when Colin Cooper got injured. How did I feel about that? And I put my hand up to say I was totally wrong. I got a phone call on the Saturday to say Colin Cooper's just lying on the ground. He's injured. Should we run the ad? We were launching an ad campaign with Colin lying on the ground, funnily enough, after a game with no medal. And I said, he'd be fine. He'd be grand. Run the ads. Monday morning came. The ad was in the Indo back page. And it probably did look bad taste in a way. But it actually, what happened was, we got a piece in the Kerry Man that said, how can you treat Colin Cooper with this disdain? It's not fair. He's injured, and you're just showing him being injured. And actually, this huge wave of community, we had thousands of people going, that's the point of the campaign. It's so hard to win the competition. Actually, that's the point. He's broken-hearted. He's injured. He's broken-hearted, and he's not going to win it again for another year. So we got that early on, so people started trusting us a little bit. But there's been loads of stuff we've made and we haven't shown for various reasons, So we did the hidden taxi. We did it with Brendan as well, and we did it with Colin. And there's stuff we haven't shown that haven't come off. But the ticket was a really interesting one, where we decided to push a little further. We actually had a different sign for the pub. One of the things we wanted to do for the pub was actually have a banner that said, congratulations, and then a banner over it, and underneath Kerry, and before the game. And it was actually going to say, congratulations, Kerry, on having 8 teams left in the club championships. Okay. But that bit would be hidden. And we just said, God, before the match, social media go mental. They'll be saying, like, AIB, what are you doing? And the publican at the last minute said, not on your life, my pub will be burnt down, So there's been certain things we've done, but so, that's put in the back. We'll use that some other time, or maybe. But most of the time, it's been very, very positive.
So obviously the publicans in Donegal then have good sway over the commercial decisions. In terms of AIB, again, big brand, big broad reach. Sport has always been there, central to it, but you're out there backing Brave at the moment. There's sporting connotations in there. As a small businessman, I like it. It speaks to me, so that's working as well. Where does sport fit in the sort of the whole matrix of what AIB wants to use in terms of telling its story and defining itself?
That's a really good question. I have to think about that. I was obviously involved with backing Brave, and I'll be honest and say the two are not connected. But I suppose there is a spirit and there's an emotion in both. We would, as an organisation, say what we've done over the last 18 months is we've tried to rebuild, to some extent, our reputation with our customers by actually going out there with proof points. A lot of times, don't say things, just prove you can do stuff. And that's really what our campaign's about. And I suppose as things are starting to change, certainly with backing Brave, we're going out there and actually, I think, being a little bit more emotive with what we're saying. And I think our campaign on the toughest is very much, so it taps into that human emotion. Because we are, at the end of the day, just part of the community. We are, a brand that's been around a long time.
Yeah, great. Okay.